Two guys who have faces for radio. Welcome to the Low Post. How you doing? I'm Eric Stark with Mike Gross, my co-host. And Mike, we got a couple topics we're going to talk about this week. A lot of baseball this week, and I think Memorial Day sort of brings that out in us. We start thinking more about that.
Absolutely.
Philadelphia Phillies. They've been fun to watch the last couple of days. Scored 35 runs Sunday into Monday combined. What are your impressions? What jumps out to you about the Phillies after what you saw over the holiday weekend here with them?
We said all along that they were going to hit. We said in our Phillies preview that they were going to hit, and the weather's getting warm, and some guys who were slumping have started to put it together a little bit. I think that's part of it. Another thing that we said about the Phillies at the beginning of the year was that they have a pretty good bench, and I think that's one of the things that has shown up to me lately. Greg Dobbs, by far the best pinch hitter in baseball. Taguchi gets to play last night, gets 3 hits. Chris Coast, the backup catcher, 3 hits last night. They lose Jason Worth, and you almost don't notice that he's gone, as fine a job as he was doing. They have a lot of interchangeable parts and a lot of guys who, when they get the at-bats, have come through and hit. To some degree, I think it's contagious, and I think we're heading into a stretch here. The Phillies on a 10-game homestand, and swinging the bats pretty well, and really a chance to, and Florida coming into town over the weekend, which is in first place. Chance for the Phillies to really make something happen over the next week or so.
A couple of things on what you said. Worth was a part-time player before Victorino got hurt, and he goes into center field on a more of a full-time basis, and that's when he got hot. Now he's hurt, and Victorino's picked it up as well. I'm waiting for Jeff Jenkins to do the same. You mentioned Greg Dobbs, 10 pitch hits and 9 RBIs and 22 at-bats this season. He's one of the league leaders in pinch hits. But those are impressive numbers on a part-time basis, what he does off the bench. One other point, the bullpen. The bullpen has really been impressive right now during the stretch. They've
been outstanding. They're the only element of the Phillies team, I think, that has been exceptionally, really, really good for the whole season. And that's, unfortunately, it's almost certain that that's not going to last. They're not going to continue to be this good. And the bullpen, I mean, Lidge is going to blow a save at some point. There's no way around that. So you can say, well, gee, we're right in the middle of the race, and we didn't have Jimmy Rollins, and Howard was awful, and all. We can say all these negatives. You also have to say that the bullpen's been almost unbelievable for this entire stretch, so maybe that can't continue.
A couple points about that. The bullpen has a record combined of 14-7. The rest of the Phillies rotation is 14-17. Brad Lidge, 1-0 this year. Here's his ERA, 0.43. And he has 12 saves and 12 opportunities. In 21 innings, he has allowed 10 hits, 1 earned run, 10 walks, and he struck out 24 batters. Opponents are batting a measly 1.37 ERA. .137 ERA. Yeah, it's really low.
He's been unbelievable, and he throws real hard, and he has this unbelievable slider, and it's really he's really a 2-pitch guy, and that's kind of what you want in your closer. Come in and be real aggressive and throw 2 pitches, he's been unbelievable, and that really was a 2-faceted trade acquisition when they acquired Lidge, because it gave them an opportunity to move Myers back to the starting rotation. That part of it has not worked out quite as well, but it's been a good move.
How smart would Pat Gillick look right now if that had worked out? And one of these things right now is I'm thinking, Brett Myers, we keep hearing even some of his supporters say, oh, well, he wants to be in the bullpen. That's why his mindset's not right. Get over it, Brett. Yeah. Brad Lidge is doing great, and quite frankly, they're going to sign him again if he keeps this up, because they'll redo the deal. So Myers needs to get his act together, and because his spring training numbers were strong, I'm thinking this is more mental than physical right now.
Well, and we don't know that Myers is unhappy about starting. We don't know that because people are saying it. I mean, I just think he's having a difficult time making this transition, and I think it's more. I think it's much more difficult to go from being a closer to being a starter than the other way around.
Yes,
I would think. And he's laboring a little bit with that now. His last 2 outings I thought were pretty solid, pretty decent. And again, we talked about this last week, and I think that it's not quite as big a deal as some people are making it out to be. I think he's going to be all right.
About the Phillies offense, I was saying to you before we started taping this, they have been consistent all year. This has not been a feast or famine situation with the Phillies. They've been the most consistent team in their division, even though they don't lead it right now. I looked up quick. If you add up the number of games each team in their division has played where they've scored at least 4 or more runs, the Phillies have 33 games where they've scored 4 or more runs. The Mets 32, the Braves 30, the Marlins 28, and the Nationals 25. All those teams are pretty close together. That's why the division is really close together, I think, as well. But I'm not taking these 35 runs and saying, look how many they've scored. That's only 2 games. I'm saying take how many games with 4 runs or more. They've been very consistent this year.
Very voluminous piece of research, Duncan.
Thank you.
Very impressive, because that's not the kind of thing you could just Google. You know, you can't Google NL East 4 runs or more. You got to do some work.
I got to go look up how to spell voluminous. How do you say that word?
Voluminous.
Wow, good word.
Voluminous.
Good word.
He's a journalist. He's a trained professional journalist, folks. Bear that in mind.
I know who to go get me look up research for. Memorial Day. We said it's a great time to reflect. It's report card time. It's like school. This is one of the when they break down the season. This would be first marking period.
Right. I'll buy that.
You buy that?
I'll buy that. I'm with you.
Report card. I want to look back a little bit on who was in first at this time last season compared to who's in first this season. And I will not give. I didn't do all the research myself on this one. Baseball Tonight, Carl Ravitch, John Kruk, and the guys were doing this last night. But made me start thinking this would be a good topic. Did you know the Mets were in first place last year at this time?
Hardly
before they collapsed. I think since the end of May last year, they had like a 71-83 record. They're below 500.
Yeah.
Hopefully Randolph still has his job. That's good to know.
Good to know.
Marlins are in first place this year. In the Central, the Brewers at this time last year in first place. This year, the Cubs. Los Angeles Dodgers and San Diego Padres were tied last year. This year, it's the Diamondbacks of Arizona. In the American League, you had Boston first. Now it's, get this, we're going to talk more about this later. Tampa Rays. Don't say Devil Rays. Rays.
I almost
They're
did.
a new team now and new results. They're in first place now in the American League East. The Rays. Cleveland in the Central in 2007. This year, the White Sox. And both years, 2007 and 08, the Los Angeles, Anaheim, whatever, the Angels in first.
Got a lengthy title. They're like a law firm.
But they are consistent, and they are in first again. What do you take from that? What have you taken so far? We look back the first marking period here in baseball.
Well, I mean, I my suspicion is that some of those teams are frauds, and my suspicion is that some of those teams are not frauds. I think the White Sox are a fraud. I just don't think that. I just don't think they're that good. And although they have been terrific to this point and have beat quality people, beat quality pitchers and everything, I think the Florida Marlins are a little bit of fraud too. I just don't think they're that good. Tampa is a team that has been bad for long enough that they've had like the first pick in the draft numerous times, and they've used those draft picks to really get better and really have a lot of really quality young players. B.J. Upton, even Evan Longoria.
You wanted to say Eva, didn't you?
I almost did.
Okay.
This person is not married to Tony Parker. It's the other Longoria.
Not that there be anything wrong with that.
Thank you, Starkey, for sociological perspective. So I think they're a little bit more legit, although they are in the American League East with the Red Sox. I mean, I'm not saying they're going to win it, but I think they're a little bit more legit than the Marlins. Although the Marlins beat the Diamondbacks and beat Brandon Webb and Rich Herron in back-to-back games. I mean, they really have played well to this point. But you look at their numbers hard, and I mean, they're offensively and pitching-wise, ERA, on-base percentage, slugging percentage, all that kind of stuff. They're average or worse in the National League. So really, they've been kind of duct taping it together a little bit, and you got to give them credit for that. But I don't think it's going to last.
Very young team as well. Andrew Miller was one of those guys they made the Dontrelle Willis trade from Detroit, and he's starting to get hot. Mark Hendrickson, a former draft pick of the Philadelphia 76ers,
yes,
has had a strong year as a starting pitcher.
7-2.
Yeah. But you know what? He's struggled the last couple of times. I don't think he's going to keep it up. But it's the first time the Tampa Bay team has been 11 games. They're 11 games over 500. That's the first time ever they've been there, Mike.
Yeah, 31-20. They've been real good, and the Red Sox have wavered a little bit in the last month or so. So I still got to believe they're the favorite to win that division. By the way, speaking of Andrew Miller, faces Johan Santana tonight.
Wow, that's
pretty good for the Mets. Pretty good game. Pretty good pitching matchup there.
That should be good. The Red Sox, you mentioned about this division, and there's sort of like the Spurs and some of these championship teams that sort of know when to, if you want to turn it on.
Right.
I sort of think they go through the motions a little bit during a season. They're a veteran team, and I think that's partly what we're seeing so far. Some of these veteran teams aren't really hitting the switch yet.
Well,
could that be?
Except that I think it's harder to turn it on and turn it off in baseball. Because there's so much luck involved. I mean, you can. The Spurs just know that they're better than teams, and they're going to beat them. You can't feel that comfortable and confident if you're a baseball team. In my view, you can't.
Okay, it looks a little different. It's interesting with Tampa Bay. They're trying to get a new stadium down there. What a great time to try to get legislation through to get a $300 million stadium put in there, right by the water. I've seen pictures of it. It looks beautiful. They can do it. They're in one of the worst facilities now. It's not even a baseball stadium. I was there earlier this season. It was just really bad, like a dungeon, really dark. But it helps when you're in first place in the American League East when you're trying to get a new stadium put in place. Yeah. But with Florida Marlins, what really frustrates me is this is the third time that team has been blown up and rebuilt, and here they are in first place. They have 2 World Series titles since 1997, Mike. Can't the Phillies just once go for it? Throw all in here, get us a title, and then blow it up. We'll keep coming. We still honor the 1980s team. We still honor the 1993 Phillies team that didn't win a World Series. Well, Rich Williams is great now for some reason.
That's right, he is. Who would have thought Mitch Williams would seem analytical? I'm as stunned by that as I am anything I can think of in American popular culture. It's astounding. But I'm going to disagree with you a little bit. I think the throwing all in idea is overrated, and the Florida Marlins are Exhibit A for that. They've certainly made it work. I think they were a little bit fortunate to have made it work the way they did. Winning the 2 postseasons, as you probably know, I consider the postseason in baseball to be essentially a crapshoot, so I just think that I think that you have this idea that throwing all in is you've got to win the whole thing for that to work. You've got to win the World Series or the World Championship or whatever it is, and I just think that the idea that you can know that there's specific behavior that constitutes throwing all in, and you can be confident that that's going to work, is tremendously overrated. I'm not a big fan of that.
Well, they've rolled the dice twice and hit it twice.
Yeah.
So I'm impressed with it. I'm just saying, try it once, Phillies. It's been 100 seasons since 1983 when the Sixers won. I'd like to see a title. I'd like to try to take off work and say I'm sick and go down to Broad Street for a parade. That's all I'm saying.
Do you think they threw all in when they signed Jim Thome?
Phillies?
Yeah.
No, I don't. They needed more pitching back then, too.
Yeah.
So, no, I don't. We can debate that another time, but there's probably more we can do about that topic. The topic of instant replay has come up a lot in the news lately because of several botched plays. How many was it last week?
Last week there were 4 plays where apparent home runs were not ruled home runs. Various things about did it hit the yellow line, did it hit the foul pole, etc. Mm-hmm. So this is brought into focus, this argument about instant replay.
Your thoughts on instant replay?
Well,
you like it?
In the specific situation that we're talking about, yeah, I do like it. I think that the only argument against it that I can see is that it slows the game down. You show me a fan who thinks that his team might have gotten jobbed on a home run, who doesn't want to slow the game down so we can be sure. I can't imagine that. And pace of play and length of game in baseball is an interesting topic. I think it's more about pace of play than it is actually length of game, and the reason the games have gotten longer is because the game has changed, and more pitching changes, more pitches per at bat, smaller strike zone, more guys who can hit the ball out of the ballpark. That kind of thing is why the game has gotten slower. But I think they can address pace of play, and people would be a lot less bothered by the length of the games.
I think what they need to do is bring back those old golf carts like they did in the 70s, to bring the guys in from the bullpen. Instead of them jogging in or walking in, bring that golf cart in. Like the big baseball cart.
How hokey was that?
It was hokey.
And that was just sort of generally accepted for a certain period of time. A golf cart with a giant baseball head on it.
Yep.
And it's just going to be sort of a standard part of Major League Baseball. And the relief pitchers, he's got the jacket over his shoulder, and he just sort of calmly, I don't feel ridiculous at all driving in a golf cart with a giant baseball head over top of me.
How intimidating is it to come in with Enter Sandman when you're in a little golf cart with a baseball?
Exactly.
I think it would speed up the game, Mike. That's my point. Let's go retro on that one.
Okay. I don't think it would speed up the game.
No, I don't think so.
That much. And we're talking about the golf cart still. I thought we were on the instant replay.
I'm not a big fan of the instant replay, and here's why. You think I would be? It's got to be great. Welcome to the 21st century, right? Just like 21st century, welcome to the 21st century with our show. If you look up the left-hand corner right now, you're going to see we've got categories slotted. You probably have noticed and say, "Wow, look how great these guys are. This is really state-of-the-art."
Well, actually, it's Paul.
It's Paul Franz.
We've got to give him all the credit for that.
It's Paul MacGyver Franz.
We're very, very low-tech.
Yeah.
Paul's got it wired.
Well, we appreciate that. But I hope you guys like our little change here, just like Major League Baseball. We'll probably add the instant replay, but I'm going to say no to it because the games are slow enough already. Let's not take 10 minutes or have some guy stick his hand underneath this camera like they do in NFL. It's like they're watching a peep show out there. That's all I need. Is some heavy-set umpire to stand there like he's at a peep show. Yeah. Here's 4 quarters. Have some fun, buddy.
So if the umpires were trimmer, you'd be okay with instant replay, is what you're telling us.
Maybe that. I just don't want them sticking their head on the baseball field and a little camera over this, like they do in football. It just looks like they have a curtain on it. They stick their heads in it.
But in most cases, these kind of plays that we're talking about, these 4 disputed home runs last week, those kind of plays, if you only used instant replay in those cases, there's going to be a caucus among the umpires and possibly an argument with one or both of the managers anyway. The game is going to get stopped and delayed for a caucus anyway. I would think that I as a fan would prefer to see this caucus taking place and something decisive coming out of it that's getting the call right.
You hit it right on the head. Caucus. It's a human element that will be taken out of the game, and that's what I don't want to see. Baseball has still had that human element, and I've loved that about it. It is still decided between the lines, okay? If we start doing this, we might as well just put a robot back there. Or let's have it like American Idol, where you can call in on 1-866.
Now you've gone nuts.
MLB baseball, and we can call and see if it's a ball or a strike. You can decide if that was a strike.
Now you've just gone nuts.
I look back in baseball. Jeffrey Mayer never would have got a key to New York City if it would be for instant replay.
That's right.
So he wouldn't have reached over to what a ball that and interfered, but they didn't call it interference. On Tarasco's play with
now,
would
that be a play? Would that have been a play where instant replay would come into effect?
I think it should have been. He reached in on the playing surface, and they didn't know that.
I would have guessed that the time you could use instant replay would be, in effect, ground rule situations. Did it hit the fair pole or not? Did it hit the yellow line or not? I would think that would be sort of the narrow, specific use of instant replay to me. I think I'm not even sure that the Jeffrey Mayer thing that was a home run. You sure it was? Would have been a home run?
It would not have been. He would have caught the ball, and I'm saying they ruled it a home run, and I'm saying they had instant replay. And if they start your way, Mike, with just ground rules, ground balls, foul balls, it will go to the next level. The fan reaching over. Because if you have the instant replay, you're using it for that, people are going to. The outcry will be, why aren't you using it for a play with the fan interference?
Well, but
he reached into the playing surface. Now they ruled it a home run. They gave it the wave, but Tarasco was underneath it. He was going to catch that ball. Remember his reaction and everything. Now that was in '97. That was the first. The Yankees went on to win the World Series. That was their first of strings. If the Orioles win that series, maybe the Yankees aren't the Yankees we know of today. Yes, they had lots of championships before '97, but the string they went on.
Well, but they only had one in this group, which was '96. They won it the year before. But you're right. Maybe it wouldn't have happened. Maybe the string. Who knows?
Maybe '85. Play at first place disputed. Joaquin Indahar goes in, gets crazy in the dugout. John Tudor goes in, puts his finger in a fan. What happens if they use instant replay? I'm really going back on it. But how many plays in baseball history would be changed if there was instant replay? You don't have to put an asterisk there saying, instant replay, era now because of the changes.
Again, the slippery slope argument is you can't prove that that's wrong. They might expand the use of instant replay to other situations, but I'm not advocating that. I'm not advocating instant replay for a close play at first base, or the Don Denkinger thing that you're talking about in the 85 World Series. And I don't think a situation where you still have to make a subjective judgment. Did this kid sticking his hand out? Did that affect the play or not? I don't think that's a specific use of instant replay either. But I can't say that you're wrong. The slippery slope argument. I can't say that you're wrong about that. Who knows if they would not try to expand the use of instant replay. But for these narrow, specific situations, did it hit the foul pole or not? Did it hit the yellow line or not? I don't see why the game is hurt by let's look at some video and make sure we get that right.
That's why we're here.
All right, there you go.
The Barnstorm is another issue in debate. I must set this up by saying I went to the game as a fan with a group of people from my church. About 22 of us sat at first base side right near Matt LaCroix, and it was one of the most boring games I've ever seen.
Wow.
Frustration. I've been down I was excited about the season, and frankly, these big guys in the middle of the lineup, like LaCroix, are Mighty Casey. He takes his big swing and the ball drops in front of the plate. The hits, these guys, maybe he's hurt. But what I'm watching out there is just frustrating as a fan. They had 7,000 people there. I think it's because there was fireworks afterwards. It wasn't because of the...
They do love the fireworks.
So
they love the fireworks.
Well, everybody does, but it smelled like sulfur afterwards. I kept thinking of the apocalypse now. And Matt Strohacker, name dropping, usually says, boy, nothing's better than the smell of... What's the line?
Napalm in the morning.
The smell of napalm
in the morning.
Victory. Yeah, smells like victory. Do you think Von Hayes feels like the captain of the Titanic right now? That's my question.
Yeah, I really do because they've struggled incredibly in close games, but now it's beyond that. Injuries all over the place. Their better players have gotten signed. There was a stretch in the game last night where they had no position players on the bench. The injuries. This Matt LaCroix has had a shoulder thing. He thought it was a muscle tear when it happened. Apparently, it's not a muscle tear based on the MRI, but they've given him cortisone shots. They can't get it figured out, and he is just a disaster right now. He just
his batting form, and injury or not, he's got some bad habits at the plate right now.
It looks like he does. It certainly looks like he does, and it's not all on him.
It's not just him.
They've had 21 pitchers, and this is a season. The season's only a little more than a month old in the Atlantic League. They've had 21 pitchers on their team.
And Hayes has tried some interesting tactics, and I'll give him credit for thinking a little bit outside the box. He has started some relief pitchers and then brought the starters in later on in the game thinking these guys have been stronger than the bullpen's lost them some games, so we'll start off with the bullpen, bring the starter in, and I'll have him in for the end of the game. And that hasn't worked either. It sort of backfired. But over the weekend they lost 3 players in 4 days to either injury or getting signed.
Yeah, and 3 of their better players too. 3 of their best players. Here's an interesting note about the Barnstorms. Last year they were 12 games under 500. This year they're 10-21, I think, in games that I personally have covered. In that time period, they're like 14-1.
Oh wow! They should sign you maybe as the first base coach.
This year, the Barnstormers are 4-0 in games that I've covered.
It's the gross factor. It's interesting.
It's the gross out factor.
They can put you on the bench, or they just rub your head. Matt LaCroix needs to take his bat and sort of have you rub his bat for him for luck, maybe. Interesting tidbits.
The mind reels.
You only get those tidbits by watching the Low Post. So tune in next week for some more of those great insights from Mike Gross, our lucky sports writer. And I'm Eric Stark. And for our producer, Paul Franz, we'll see you again from the Low Post.